One introduction ROSEP view: the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. ROSEP view: purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or ROSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this ROSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Episode 57 DHB April 30, 2025 The Vaccine Integrity Project to make a fall COVID vaccine more probable. In Episode 57 DHB1, a United States The Vaccine Integrity Project to make a fall COVID vaccine more probable. The Vaccine Integrity Project is a shadow privately funded COVID vaccine backup, in case the United States government does not come through on a fall 2025 COVID vaccine. 1b United States 100 Days of Trump Upending Climate Policy. 2 United States Trump poll numbers are low. 3 Germany A coalition government of SPD and CDU is moving toward completion by May 2025. 4 to 17 Google alerts April 29, 2025. 5 Alaska $38 million heat pump program set to roll out this summer. 8 Michigan Governor Whitmer announces statewide Michigan home energy rebates program. 15b United Kingdom England Environmental Health Group condemns government's plan to allow domestic wood-burning stoves. Excerpts 18b Headlines The New York Times April 30, 2025. 19b Headlines The New York Times April 29, 2025. 20b Headlines The Guardian April 30, 2025. 21b Headlines The Guardian April 29, 2025. Main content. 1. A United States The Vaccine Integrity Project to make a fall COVID vaccine more probable. The Vaccine Integrity Project is a shadow privately funded COVID vaccine backup in case the United States government does not come through on a fall 2025 COVID vaccine. Epidemiology News Measles and Novavax confusion and a new backup plan for COVID vaccines. Excerpts edited by Ross Epp for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Your local epidemiologist newsletter April 29, 2025. Measles cases are still rising fast. Dengue season is heating up early and food dyes may be on their way out. Plus a lot of confusion around Novavax COVID-19 vaccine approval and a new backup plan for vaccine policy. Infectious disease alerts Measles. We are now at 923 cases nationwide. It is hard to determine whether we are at the beginning or middle of these outbreaks given significant underreporting, but we are quickly approaching the highest number of cases recorded in the past 25 years. A new KFF poll shows a stark divide in public concern. 76% of Democrats say they are worried about the measles outbreak compared to just 28% of Republicans. COVID vaccine news. What's happening with Novavax? This is a good question. Unlike Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 vaccines, Novavax uses a more traditional protein-based platform. It has been available under emergency use authorization while working toward full FDA approval, the gold standard for maintaining market access. Manufacturing delays have slowed that process, but a lot has changed in just the past month. Here is what I know. Full approval was originally scheduled for April 1st, but that decision was paused early just after Dr. Peter Marks was forced to resign, sparking speculation of political interference. Last week Novavax announced it is back on track for full approval. Then over the weekend the FDA said that it is requiring a clinical trial to reevaluate the effectiveness of Novavax, and now more recent comments suggest that the same bar might be applied to Moderna and Pfizer vaccines as well. This is not normal. A new clinical trial could cost millions of dollars, which is not my main concern given the financial position of these companies, but it would also take time, and that is a concern. Fall is around the corner, and designing, recruiting, conducting trials and manufacturing doses typically take years. Unless we are in a declared emergency. Since the original COVID-19 vaccine trials, we have shifted to a model similar to flu vaccines. Anticipate the virus mutating quickly and test a small number of people's blood to confirm an immune response. The strain changes in the vaccine formula are minor, more like tweaking a few letters in a Word doc than changing the document's content, length or format. Meanwhile, real-world data from CDC continues to show that updated COVID vaccines offer additional protection, especially for those over 65. Here is what I do not know. Are these just FDA talking points to the media, or will this actually become policy for fall approval? What kind of trial is being required? Tens of thousands of participants. And why are COVID-19 vaccines now being treated so differently than flu? There is a lot we still do not know, and until we get clarity it is unclear whether updated COVID vaccines will be available this fall or if they will be delayed by shifting expectations and new rules. The Vaccine Integrity Project, a new backup plan? There are concerns that Secretary Kennedy will politically influence or changes of the External Committee for Vaccine Policy in the United States, which means the possibility of changing eligibility or access to vaccines. If this happens, it will be a mess. States will be on their own, insurance companies will be looking for third-party validation, and there would be a whole lot of confusion. So a shadow group was stood up. University of Minnesota called the Vaccine Integrity Project, backed by a philanthropic gift. This will be an 8-member committee to advise on vaccine protection, effectiveness, and recommendations outside of government. What does it mean for you? The Vaccine Integrity Project will not have formal authority. However, if a SIP's role becomes politicized, it could serve as an important alternative. It is another sign that public health groups are mobilizing to stay ahead of potential disruptions. 1B United States 100 Days of Trump Upending Climate Policy. Excerpts edited by Rossep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times Climate Forward newsletter, April 30, 2025. In his first 100 days, the Trump efforts to roll back regulations and stop climate action have shocked even those who were raising the alarm in the months before the election. Full-on Fight Club is how one environmental lawyer described it to us last month. The Trump administration has dismissed hundreds of scientists and experts who has been compiling the National Climate Assessment, the federal government's flagship report on how global warming is affecting the country. Congress has not passed a comprehensive environmental law in more than 3 decades, ceding climate policy to the executive branch. In his second term, Trump has stretched the limits of presidential power, withholding spending, firing workers, and upending years of climate action. This is worse than any previous administration, said Gina McCarthy, the EPA administrator under President Obama. He can do a lot of damage to the agency, and when he leaves he will have left devastation in his wake. Boosting fossil fuels. Trump, who has called climate change a hoax, took more than $75 million in campaign contributions from oil and gas interests and campaigned on a pledge to drill, baby drill, and in the first months of his second term he has made good on his promise to promote the oil and gas industry. On his first day in office, Trump declared an energy emergency that gave the president the power to fast-track approvals for natural gas pipelines and mining projects. Another order last week is intended to speed up approvals for fossil fuel projects on public lands. He also signed an executive order designed to revive the coal industry. At the same time, Trump has been working to bolster the country's natural gas export business. In addition to lifting a pause on the construction of new natural gas export terminals, the Trump administration is pressuring other countries to buy more American gas, using the issue for leverage in tariff negotiations. All the while, the new administration has been undermining one of the country's fastest growing industries, renewable energy. A new mission for the EPA. For more than 50 years, the Environmental Protection Agency, which was established by President Richard Nixon in 1970, had twin missions of promoting clean air and water and reducing pollution from things like waste disposal, radiation, and pesticides. Then came the Trump re-election last month. The EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin reframed the purpose of the agency, declaring that it was now there to lower the cost of buying a car, heating a home, and running a business. This is more than just talk. During the Trump first 100 days, the EPA has moved to abandon many of its regulatory functions. It is working to repeal regulations on pollutants from smokestacks and tailpipes and forfeiting the legal basis that allows it to regulate planet warming emissions. Zeldin is also repositioning the EPA to be a defender of the president's economic agenda. The agency will no longer consider whether new policies it creates would lead to costly wildfires, droughts, or storms, clawing back $20 billion in climate grants. Many thought the Biden administration's $27 billion in greenhouse gas reduction fund grants, clean energy funds that were included in the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, would be beyond the reach of any new administration intent on cutting government spending. The grant awards were announced last April and finalized ahead of a September deadline, but soon after taking office, Zeldin began suggesting that $20 billion of the already disbursed funds were vulnerable to fraud. He called for all of the money to be returned to the federal government. So far, the Trump administration has succeeded in cutting off nonprofit groups' access to billions of dollars in grants. Recipients have been unable to access the money since mid-February. Several of the nonprofits have sued, and the case is playing Out in court ahead of the inauguration, nonprofits and environmental lawyers had prepared for aggressive Republican oversight of climate programs, potentially in the form of congressional inquiries or grant delays, said Gillian Blanchard, vice president at Lawyers for Good Government, a nonprofit group. Now a congressional inquiry sounds like a luxury, she said. A withdrawal from world climate relations. Shortly after his inauguration, Trump signed an executive order directing the United States to withdraw once again from the landmark Paris Agreement, a 2015 pact among almost all nations to fight climate change. Yet early indications suggest the second Trump administration will do more than stand by as the rest of the world tries to come to consensus on climate issues. Two United States Trump poll numbers are low. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Atlantic Daily, April 29, 2025. Capitalizing on error. People are very happy with this presidency, Trump said in an interview with The Atlantic last week. I have had great polls. That was not true then, and it is even less true now as Trump hits his 100th day in office. Today pollsters have been releasing new surveys and the results are ugly. NBC News finds that 55% of Americans disapprove of the Trump handling of the job, but that's rosy compared with the 59% in a CNN poll. And ABC News/Washington Post poll finds that just 39% of Americans approve of the Trump performance, the lowest ever recorded going back to 1945 and smashing through the previous record of 42% set by one Donald Trump in 2017. More than half of Americans say that Trump is a dangerous dictator whose power should be limited before he destroys American democracy, according to the Public Religion Research Institute, tasked by NPR to give Trump a letter grade for his first 100 days. A full 45% of Americans gave Trump an F, including 49% of independents. 60% believe that the country is on the wrong track. Per NBC, the economy was perhaps the decisive issue in November, but now fewer than 4 in 10 people approve of the Trump handling, according to NPR. Relatedly, consumer confidence is at its worst level since the early weeks of the coronavirus pandemic. Plenty of people, including the staff of this magazine, warned about how a second Trump presidency might go wrong, and a plurality of people who voted backed Trump anyway. In the only poll that matters, as the saying goes, is the one on election day. Trump has shown less responsiveness to indicators like the stock market than he has in the past. An unpopular president is a less powerful president. Enacting an authoritarian approach is harder, though not impossible, without public support, and other institutions such as the Republican Party, universities and law firms are less likely to bend their knee if they see weakness. One way you can tell these polls have some effect is that Trump is lashing out furiously about them. 3. Germany, a coalition government of SPD and CDU, is moving toward completion by May 2025. Post on X. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. SPD Party Executive Board, European Union. Post on X, April 29, 2025. Over 358,000 members of the German SPD were asked, and you decided with 84.6% of votes in favor of the coalition agreement with CDU. You are giving us the mandate to assume responsibility. Thank you to everyone who voted. Co-determination is very important to us, which is why our members make decisions openly, transparently together. Your trust sustains us, especially in times of great uncertainty. Now we are getting started for stable conditions and a socially just country. There were 15.4% of votes against and the turnout was 56%. 4-17 Google Alerts, April 29, 2025. For a United States NPM 2.5 new report, nearly half of people in U.S. exposed to dangerous air pollution levels. American Lung Association. These particles come from wildfires, wood burning stoves, coal-fired. This year's report includes data from the summer of 2023 when smoke. 4B United States heat pump rebates. 4B1 United States cautious homeowner sparks debate after friend recommends next-gen heat pump. MSN for heat pump enthusiasts. One person on Reddit recently offered a dream come true: the chance to spread the word. United States heat pumps power ahead. ACHR News. A 2024 survey shows heat pump adoption is rising in the U.S., driven by greater awareness and contractor influence. Homeowner details the savings made on heating bills with cutting-edge HVAC technology. The cool down. Thanks for the tip about the heat pump rebate. The original poster went on to add that with the adoption of heat pumps they need a new water heater? Here is how you can get $1,750 from the government. The cool-down heat pump water heaters are energy efficient and good for the planet, and thanks to federal tax credits and rebates they are way more affordable. United States, is it time for fashion to enter its heat pump era? Forbes. The techno-economic assessment of low-carbon thermal heat sources in different geographies revealed multiple interesting findings. Heat pumps in United States. New data reveals surging popularity of next-gen heat pumps. The cool-down heat pumps work a lot like air conditioners or refrigerators, except the direction of the heat transfer can be switched. A closed tube full of gas. United States want to reduce your carbon footprint. Start with your heat pump. Good housekeeping. Over the past several years, heat pumps have gained popularity among homeowners, and for good reason, since these heating and cooling systems. 5. Alaska $38 million heat pump program set to roll out this summer. KHNS Radio. The program aims to defray the cost of installing electric heat pumps, which can heat and cool homes in place of fossil fuel-based systems often. 6. A California. Barclay's proposed new law would be among the strictest in California. MS and wood-burning stoves to be allowed in new homes. The Telegraph. 6. B. California heat pumps can lower energy bills for Californians today. RMI heat pumps are a critical technology to improve air quality, protect public health, cut pollution, and provide efficient heating cooling. 6. C. California Lake Tahoe prescribed fires continue this week. USDA Forest Service. Smoke produced by unwanted wildfires. Smoke from prescribed burns, wildfire, or wood-burning stoves may hang low to the ground at night and in the 7. A Colorado Mug National Forests to begin prescribed fires near Willow Creek drainage. USDA Forest Service. For more information on how prescribed fire smoke may affect your health, please visit https://www.colorado.gov. Pacific CDF Wood Smoke and Health. 7B Colorado prescribed burns planned for the Pagosa Ranger District. The Pagosa Springs Sun prescribed fire smoke may affect your health. More information can be found online. https://www.colorado.gov. Pacific CDF Wood Smoke and Health. 8. Michigan Governor Whitmer announces statewide Michigan Home Energy Rebates program to help state of Michigan. These rebate options support energy efficiency and electrification upgrades for single and multi-family homes. Heat pump for heating or cooling. New programs aim to cut energy upgrade expenses for Michigan households. WHMI maximum rebates include $840 for an electric stove or dryer, $1,750 for a heat pump for heating or cooling. Households can receive up to. Governor Whitmer launches rebate programs to help Michiganders upgrade their homes. WZZM 13. Among the maximum rebates available are $840 for an electric stove or dryer, $1,750 for a heat pump water heater, $1,600 for insulation air. New rebate program could help Michiganders upgrade appliances, make home energy growing. Heat pump water heaters. If you can lower the cost of those things, you know that makes a real difference in people's lives, said Johnston. Whitmer announces statewide home energy rebates program. WNEM. Up to 15,000 Michigan residents could see lower home energy costs thanks to a rebate program announced by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Heat pump for heating. Michigan home energy rebates save families $34,000. Governor Whitmer says Thumb Wind Me Her program offers two rebate paths for homeowners and renters: $8,000 for heat pumps, $1,750 for heat pump water heaters, $1,600 for insulation, and 9. Minnesota IRS confirms $3,200 credit for home upgrades. Here is how to claim it. Finger Lakes. 1. The energy efficient home improvement tax credit is a non-refundable federal tax credit for high efficiency upgrades such as heat pumps. Heat pump. 10. A New Jersey and Pennsylvania live updates. Arson charges against teen as wildfire continues to burn in NJNBC. 10. Philadelphia investigators claim Kling set wooden pallets on fire and left the area before the flames were extinguished during a Wednesday news conference. 10B New Jersey teen accused of starting massive New Jersey wildfire by burning wood pallets up north live. As of Thursday morning, the fire had burned approximately 15,000 acres and destroyed at least one commercial building. Power was cut to about 25,000. 10C New Jersey man charged with starting New Jersey wildfire by burning wood pallets. The Washington Post. A 19-year-old man faces arson charges in the Ocean County blaze, which has burned 15,000 acres and is sending smoke into New York City. 10D New Jersey teen accused of starting massive New Jersey wildfire by burning wood pallets. Jar teen accused of starting massive New Jersey wildfire by burning wood pallets. The National News Desk, Thursday, April 24, 2025. 11A New York and New Jersey air quality alert issued for NYC as smoke from New Jersey wildfires reaches Brooklyn Bronx. Particulate matter or PM 2.5. These tiny particles, which can come from wildfires and other combustion sources, can be harmful when inhaled. 11B New York and New Jersey and Canada. NYC issues air quality alert over smoke from New Jersey wildfire. Yahoo News Canada finds particulate matter is expected to reach levels of PM 2.5 exceeding an air quality index value of 100. Air quality alerts for New York City. 12 Oregon heat pump rebates. Oregon is getting hotter. This state program is helping thousands of renters stay cool. OPB landlords can get up to $5,000 for installing energy efficient heat pumps in a home. There are additional incentives if a tenant is considered low or 13 Pennsylvania firefighters battle large fire at Moultrie Recycling Yard in NJNBC 10 Philadelphia smoke stream. Though the fire is contained to the land there, he said there is a large pile of wood still burning in several small spots. 14 Wisconsin Kewaskum reminds residents of village burning ordinance. GM today. Only natural wood or manufactured fire logs are allowed. Leaves, garbage, plastics, construction debris and other prohibited materials are. 15 A United Kingdom proposed future homes standard will permit wood burning stoves, heating and ventilating. Burning best practices. Responsible use of modern wood burning appliances is something the SIA and its members have advocated for over many years. Government confirms proposed future homes standard will permit wood burning stoves. Under the standards proposed in the consultation, a wood burning stove would be permitted as a secondary heating source in new homes. The MHCLG also. 15B United Kingdom England Environmental Health Group condemns government's plan to allow domestic wood burning stoves. Excerpts edited by RSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization Inside Homes News, April 29, 2025. Environmental health professionals have condemned the government's plan to allow wood burning stoves in new homes under proposals in the Future Homes Standard. Under the Future Homes Standard, a wood burning stove would be permitted as a secondary heating source in new homes. Environmental Health Group condemns government's plan to allow domestic wood burning stoves. Environmental health professionals have condemned the government's plan to allow wood burning stoves in new homes under proposals in the Future Homes Standard. The Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, CHE, a professional body that represents environmental health professionals, has shared its disappointment after it was reported that wood burning stoves will be allowed as a secondary heating source in new built homes in England. The CHE, along with the Healthy Air Coalition, of which it is a member, has called for an action plan for the phasing out of domestic wood burning in 2021. Heating 28 million homes in the UK accounted for 18% of greenhouse gas emissions. Read more. Scottish social tenants cannot foot the bill for decarbonisation after heating bill scrapped. SFHA says our homes need to do more than just meet the Decent Homes Standard. Our homes need to do more than just meet the Decent Homes Standard. The decision was confirmed in a letter from the government to the Stove Industry Association, as reported in The Guardian, stating that the government does not intend to ban wood burning stoves in new homes under the Future Homes Standard. It read: a full technical consultation on the Future Homes Standard was launched in December 2023 and closed in March 2024. Under the standards proposed in the consultation, a wood burning stove would be permitted as a secondary heating source in new homes. The CHE said this decision would be a backward step in the fight to improve air quality and protect public health. The aim of the Future Homes Standard is to mandate that new homes in England are designed for low carbon heating and high energy efficiency, so they are carbon neutral once the grid is decarbonized. Permitting domestic wood burning stoves goes against the same social landlords have previously called for greater certainty around the green standards for new built homes. Louis Warden, head of technical at Greencore Homes, also asked whether future generations will look back and wonder why more was not done at this critical moment to curb emissions. This government's recent decision would go against the Climate Change Committee's recommendations that wood burning stoves in homes should be phased out because of the carbon they emit. They also produce particles that cause health problems, including heart and lung disease, diabetes, cancer, brain dysfunction and premature births according to a growing body of research. Mark Elliott, president of the CHE, said while CHE understands that in some settings there is little or no choice for domestic wood burning, we have been clear that where there is a choice and alternatives available, these must be sought, as the harmful effects of domestic wood burning cannot be ignored. He added, we would call on the government to reconsider its position on this matter before it is too late. We will continue to advocate for homes being heated in the cleanest way possible to reduce the pollutants people and communities create, the health impacts they cause, and the strain this generates on our health services. Even eco-design wood burning stoves produce 450 times more toxic air pollution than gas central heating. A study by Professor Chris Whitty, Chief Medical Officer for England, has found. 15C1 United Kingdom. England doctors alarm as safety chiefs greenlight cancer-causing trendy home appliance. Daily Mail. Senior medics today sounded the alarm over short-sighted and harmful government plans to allow wood-burning stoves in new homes in England. 15C2 United Kingdom. England major U-turn on wood-burning stoves stuns campaigners and homeowners. Daily Mail. Wood-burning stoves will be allowed in new-built homes across England, the government has confirmed, despite concerns over their impact on air. 15D1 United Kingdom. England. Wood-burning stoves to be allowed in new homes in England despite concerns. The Guardian. Due to the high amount of greenhouse gases emitted when burning wood and solid fuels, the Climate Change Committee strongly advises that it needs to. We know that wood burning is one of the major sources of toxic air pollution that is killing tens of thousands of people every year and is linked to a 15D2 United Kingdom. Ground air and exhaust. How do different types of heat pumps work? The Guardian. Heat pumps are increasingly seen as a way of cutting our carbon footprint. Here Mark Hillston takes a look at the main types and their 15D3 United Kingdom. Do heat pumps work when it is cold? And 9 other common questions answered. The Guardian. Heat pumps warm buildings and heat water by absorbing and amplifying heat from the air, water, or ground. They function in a similar way to a fridge. 15G4 United Kingdom. They dictate the rules. BBC tells PM7 Davis to stop hosting heat pump podcast. The Guardian. The presenter of BBC Radio 4's PM program had hosted 20 episodes of the Happy Heat Pump podcast, which launched in 2024. It has covered issues PM 2.5. 15. The United Kingdom. England. Wood-burning stoves to be allowed in new homes. The Telegraph. Government says smoke can be reduced using the right fuels, appliances and practices. After fears over carbon emissions, wood-burning stoves will be allowed in new homes in England. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has written to the stove. 15. If United Kingdom. England. Wood-burning stoves to be allowed in new homes. The Times. Wood-burning stoves will be allowed in newly built homes in England. The government has confirmed after speculation that the appliances could be. 16. China. The recent and future PM 2.5 related health burden in China apportioned by emission source. Nature. We assess premature deaths from PM 2.5 exposure, examining sources like coal combustion, biomass burning industry and tailpipe emission from on-road. 17. A PM 2.5 and chromosomal abnormalities. PM 2.5 components and fetal chromosomal abnormalities, identifying critical exposure windows. ACS Publications. American Chemical Society. PM 2.5 is genotoxic and linked to fetal chromosomal abnormalities. This study aims to explore the association between PM 2.5 components. SO42 in vitro and in vivo evidence on the association of pregnant PM 2.5 exposure with preterm Science Direct COM5 activated in LRP3 inflammation. Placental Myrna 21 plays an important role in PM 2.5 induced shortening of gestational time through TLR4. In vitro and in vivo evidence on the association of pregnant PM 2.5 exposure with preterm Science Direct COM. PM 2.5 exposure during pregnancy activates NLRP3 inflammation and triggers placental inflammatory response in vivo and vitro biological pathway. 17. BPM 2.5 and depression. PM 2.5 exposure modifies the association of physical activity with depressive symptoms, and nature. PA volume and intensity were measured by a standardized questionnaire. A machine learning prediction model was applied to ascertain the PM 2.5. 17. CPM 2.5 and elderly behavior. What are the consequences of PM air pollution exposure on elderly behavior? A systematic review. Science Direct COM. Within PM 2.5 and PM01 are the most harmful to human health given their ability to penetrate tissues including the brain. Costa et al. 2019. 17D PM 2.5 and Learning Nationwide Machine Learning Ensemble PM 2.5 Mapping Prediction and Forecasting ACS Publications American Chemical Society Fine Particulate Matter PM 2.5 is a crucial public health concern. The World Health Organization Ordinance and Wood Burning. 17E PM 2.5 and Standards Clean Air Act. Environmental Organizations Joint Letter to US EPA opposing JD Super maintain and promptly implement a vital life-saving protection. The National Ambient Air Quality Standard for Fine Particulate Matter PM 2.5 or soot. 18E ROSEP Quick Takes on Headlines. The New York Times, April 30, 2025. Funding for scientific research using the scientific method continues to be cut by Trump. The non-scientist Kennedy Jr. advising parents to do their own research before approving vaccines for their children invites vaccine skepticism by non-scientists and invites another pandemic into our midst. A top science journal stops accepting submissions citing Trump cuts to the National Institutes of Health in a setback to Trump. A court has ordered Trump to disperse funding for Radio Free Europe. An opinion writer thinks Trump may destroy the United States auto industry. Another opinion writer thinks Trump may ruin Christmas for United States children because of a toy shortage. The 100 days mark was reached on April 29, 2025, and many of the articles in the New York Times were about this. 18B headlines. The New York Times, April 30, 2025. Trump and science citing NIH cuts. A top science journal stops accepting submissions. The New York Times, United States and science. Humans' wounds heal much more slowly than other mammals. The New York Times, Trump and science. Kennedy advises new parents to do your own research on vaccines. The New York Times. Trump funding cuts. Judge orders Trump officials to disperse funding for Radio Free Europe. The New York Times. Trump funding slashes opinion. The most important executive orders, events and moments in the Trump first 100 days. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. Chinese factories slow in early sign of trade wars, told the New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion. Trump is about to steal my friend's Christmas, and yours. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion. Trump says he wants to save the U.S. auto industry. His policies could destroy it. The New York Times. New York. The MTA gets $68 million in the state budget. What will riders get? The New York Times. ROSEP view mass transit cuts air pollution levels. Canada. Mark Carney has to deliver on Trump and the economy after Canada election win. The New York Times. Canada. Pierre Poilievre raised Canada's Conservative Party only to be tossed from his seat. The New York Times. 19E ROSEP Quick Takes on Headlines. The New York Times, April 30, 2025. The 100 days mark was reached on April 29, 2025, and many of the articles in the New York Times were about this milestone. Trump tariffs take a toll on General Motors. Jeff Bezos or the leadership of Amazon was thinking of placing explanations on Amazon of why prices were higher because of tariffs for presumably every affected item, which the editor of ROSEP thinks would be transparently helpful to consumers, but Trump apparently squashed that plan. The editor of ROSEP thinks this is good time for Americans to take steps to prevent illness, and some articles in the New York Times provide do-it-yourself ways to live healthier. This does not presume that patients should avoid doctors when needed and does not presume that potential patients can diagnose themselves. This does not presume that Americans should question the efficacy of vaccines, including COVID vaccines that have been exhaustively tested and been proven to be safe and effective. Boxer shorts are recommended as a Mother's Day gift, presumably, rather than briefs. One New York Times article succinctly states that Canada rejects statehood. Provinces are fine with Canada instead, as indicated by the vote on Tuesday for Liberal Carney. 19B headlines. The New York Times, April 29, 2025. Trump and climate change. National climate assessment authors are dismissed by Trump administration. The New York Times. Trump and climate change. The Trump 100 days of upending climate policy. The New York Times. Trump crypto secret deals. Foreign investments. Presidential policy changes. The rise of the Trump crypto firm. The New York Times. Trump crypto. With Trump in power, foreign crypto companies make inroads in U.S. The New York Times. ROSEP view Trump lookalike. From the article headline, My Life with Uncle Vanya, the self-pitying sad sack we cannot quit. The New York Times. Trump and rule of law. Peace Corps under review by DOJ is set to plan significant staff cuts. The New York Times. Trump and rule of law. Trump fires Biden appointees including Doug Emhoff from Holocaust Museum. The New York Times. Trump tariffs 100 days into the Trump second term. What's changed with tariffs, immigration and more? The New York Times. Trump tariffs are shining temu prices going up. What to know as Trump ends de minimis tariff loophole. The New York Times. Trump tariffs chaos graph. The New York Times. Trump tariffs GM withdraws profit forecast as Trump tariffs take a toll. The New York Times. Trump tariffs how Trump may unintentionally cut carbon emissions. The New York Times. Trump tariffs how the Trump second term is changing power institutions and more. The New York Times. Trump tariffs late night pokes fun at the Trump dismal poll numbers. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion tariffs immigration and the Trump first 100 days. 14 former Democratic voters discuss. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion the most important executive orders, events and moments in the Trump first 100 days. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion there are limits to what the courts can do in the face of the Trump legal onslaught. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion which is more dangerous, Trump triumphant or Trump in trouble. The New York Times. Trump tariffs opinion 100 days report cards on Trump. The New York Times. 100 days into the Trump second term, what's changed with tariffs, immigration and more. The New York Times. Trump tariffs retailers fear toy shortages at Christmas as tariffs freeze supply chain. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. The Trump tariffs put China's e-commerce superpowers to the test. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. Trump 100 days live updates. Michigan rally, Amazon and auto tariffs news. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. Trump administration looks to take steps to ease pain from car tariffs. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. UBS says it will cut 20,000 jobs in efficiency drive. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. West Coast ports brace for China tariffs to dent import volume within days. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. White House Amazon spat culminates in Trump calling Bezos very nice. The New York Times. United States and climate change opinion meet the unlikely warriors on the front lines of a major environmental battle. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, 5 places to turn for accurate health information. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, 5 science-backed longevity hacks that do not cost a fortune. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, 10 simple ways to improve brain health from neurologists. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, 17 ways to cut your risk of stroke, dementia and depression all at once. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, how healthy is tofu. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, how Ozempic is shaping weddings. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, immunotherapy drug spares cancer patients from grisly surgeries and harsh therapies. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, lab animals face being euthanized as Trump cuts research. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, retirement can harm your brain, here is how to keep it healthy. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, the best and worst habits for your teeth. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, the key to strength training and weightlifting, letting go of routine. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, the treadmill desk might really be worth it. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, these nutrients can strengthen aging bones. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, what nearly brainless rodents know about weight loss and hunger. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, what to know about Adderall, Ritalin and other prescription stimulants. The New York Times. United States and science and medicine, what can you do about tinnitus. The New York Times. United States Ross Upview family, where mom wears the boxer shorts, Mother's Day gift guide, T Magazine's recommendations. The New York Times. United States and remote work from home effect on business, real estate, apartments for rent in a former office but you have to live in Midtown. The New York Times. United States and Trump cuts Mellon Foundation, announces $15 million for humanities councils. The New York Times. California SEIU Local 721 workers go on strike in Los Angeles. The New York Times. Illinois Pritzker thunders against do-nothing Democrats as he stokes 2028 talk. The New York Times. New York rough night for Republican at town hall in NY swing district. The New York Times. New York and Musk and Tesla taking on Musk. New York considers move to close Tesla dealerships. The New York Times. Texas Greg Casar pitches a resistance 2.0 for Democrats in the age of Trump. The New York Times. Canada election takeaways. What's next for Mark Carney and the Liberals? The New York Times. Canada climate change once a big issue fades from Canada's election. The New York Times. Canada. Mark Carney wins new term as Canada's Prime Minister on anti-Trump platform. The New York Times. Canada. New Canadian Prime Minister hits Trump threats in shock victory speech. Canada opinion. Canada rejects statehood. The New York Times. Rossap view. The understatement of the week stated as an understated Canadian would put it. Canada. Pierre Poilievre. Canada's opposition leader loses seat in Parliament. The New York Times. United Kingdom and Reform Party as Trump copycat opinion. Can Reform UK be more than a vessel for rage? The New York Times. Europe and Trump tariffs. European anti-tourism groups plan June 15 disruptions. The New York Times. Finland. Finnish leader warns Russia you do not play with Trump. The New York Times. Finland. 3 takeaways from the Times interview with President Alexander Stubb of Finland. The New York Times. Excerpts edited by Rossap for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. President Alexander Stubb of Finland has inserted himself in the Ukraine peace process in what he calls a humble way, regularly speaking with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and also talking to Trump. April 29, 2025. A day after they golfed together in Florida, Trump said he was pissed off at the Kremlin and threatened to impose sanctions on Russia's oil customers hours after they sat next to each other at Pope Francis' funeral in Vatican City. Trump lit into Moscow for shooting missiles at civilian areas in Ukraine. Too many people are dying. Trump wrote on Truth Social on Saturday, again threatening Russia with sanctions if the Kremlin strung him along. It could be a coincidence, or Trump could be listening to Finland's President Alexander Stubb, who has emerged as a prominent voice of Europe's smaller nations on Russia's war against Ukraine. In an interview with the New York Times on Sunday, Stubb downplayed his effect on Trump. He noted that President Emmanuel Macron of France and Prime Minister Keir Starmer of Britain were leading European efforts, with his role being merely to nudge things in the right direction and try to connect the dots. Finland understands the peril of peace negotiations for Ukraine perhaps better than any other country. After wars with the Soviet Union in the 1940s, Finland gave up land to Moscow, agreed to neutrality, and accepted limits on its military remaining under the thumb of the Kremlin to some degree for decades. Stubb does not want Ukraine to suffer the same fate. He declined to detail his conversations with Trump, but said he left Vatican City feeling a tad more optimistic about the prospects for peace. But Trump, after their 2 recent meetings, has repeated almost verbatim the very message which Stubb has been sending publicly. Putin of Russia will play a cat-and-mouse game to the bitter end and is stringing Washington along, requiring Trump to increase the pressure through power and sanctions. Everyone has to understand that the only thing that Putin understands is power, Stubb said. I mean, there is a reason why Finland has one of the strongest militaries in Europe, and the reason is not Sweden. Russia shares an 835-mile border with Finland, and by the Stubb count has fought 30 wars or skirmishes against the Finns since the 1300s. An ancestor of his co-authored Finland's Declaration of Independence in 1917, after a century of Finland's being part of the Russian Empire, which followed several centuries of rule by Sweden. Stubb, who took office last year and previously served as Prime Minister, warned that Putin would do the opposite of what he says that is in the soul and spirit of Russian international relations. He said a center-right leader, Stubb 57, is uniquely equipped to appeal to Trump. He is a 6'2" marathoner and triathlete who speaks fluent English with only a slight accent, plays near professional level golf. He competed on the Finnish national team and brings a central casting look to his position. He spent a year of high school in Daytona Beach and graduated from Furman University in South Carolina. He studied on a golf scholarship, becoming a self-described avid pro-American despite claiming to play a bit role. Stubb has inserted himself in the Ukraine peace process in what he calls a humble way, regularly speaking with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and other European leaders. In addition to Trump, he says he hopes his special understanding of the United States and Russia can be of assistance. He said he sensed the Trump exasperation. Trump is running out of patience, and we have now seen statements which are quite tough on Putin and Russia, Stubb said. So I just hope the Kremlin understands that you do not play with Trump. Putin declared a unilateral 72-hour ceasefire on Monday in what seemed to be a response to the Trump outburst, but the measure fell far short of the 30-day unconditional ceasefire proposed by the United States and Ukraine. In many ways, Finland sees itself in the Ukraine troubles. The Soviet leader Joseph Stalin invaded Finland in 1939 expecting a quick conquest, and what became known as the Winter War vastly outmanned and outgunned the Finns, mounted a fierce resistance for more than 3 months, attacking unprepared Soviet forces on skis and sniping them from the forest. The war ended in a 1940 treaty that forced Finland to give up approximately 10% of its land to Moscow, including much of Karelia, where the father and grandfather of Stubb were born. That territory remains part of Russia today. The Finns joined the German Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941 to reclaim their territory, but then lost it again in 1944. Agreements followed that restricted Finland's military strength and prevented it from aligning with Western powers for the next 47 years until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Finland retained its independence and capitalist system but remained restricted by Moscow on foreign and defense policy. Finnish news media largely refrained from criticizing the Soviet Union. The country could not join NATO or develop a submarine fleet. The situation in Finland gave rise to an uneasy existence of deference to a nearby superpower and foreign affairs, an arrangement political scientists labeled Finlandization. Though it restricted Finland's autonomy and ties to the West, Finlandization proved better than the post-war fate of the nearby Baltic nations, which Moscow integrated into the Soviet Union, or the Warsaw Pact countries, which were left with communist systems that answer to the Kremlin. It is an uncomfortable place to be in, but it was a successful strategy in all of its discomfort, Stubb said. Even so, he is determined not to let Ukraine be forced into a similar role. I would never bestow upon another state the predicament of a larger player determining some of the key elements of who you are as a country, he said, calling on Europeans and Americans to help out the Ukrainians to lose as little in this war as possible. U.S. negotiators have presented their proposed outline of a peace deal, which includes U.S. recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, he said, and Ukraine and the Europeans responded with a counter-proposal which Moscow rejected. What I suggest now is that we need to repackage these two proposals into something which gives the opportunity to strike a deal right now, Stubb said. Statehood consists of land sovereignty and independence, he said, and Finland lost 2 of the 3 in the 1940s. He said he wanted Ukraine to keep all 3 but accepted that it might have to make compromises on territory reflecting battlefield realities. If we get at least 2 out of the 3 for Ukraine, I think it is great, he said, but Finland will never ever recognize any of the areas that Russia has annexed during this war from Ukraine. He said the security guarantees for Ukraine should include arming Kyiv to the teeth so it could deter a repeat attack by Moscow. Then he said Europe should provide a primary security guarantee with a backstop from the US. What that looks like, he admitted, is unclear. A leaked draft of the original US proposal published by Reuters suggested that the guarantors would be primarily European and made no mention of U.S. involvement. The Stubb approach is a departure from that of his predecessor Sally Niinistö, sometimes called a Putin whisperer. Niinistö played ice hockey with Putin and cast himself as a mediator, hosting Putin and Trump for their first summit in Helsinki. The Putin invasion of Ukraine in 2022 made that approach untenable among Finns who broadly sympathized with the Ukraine, and their nation joined NATO in 2023. In response, times they are changing, Stubb said. The Finnish leader has shown dexterity in his dealings with Trump. He offered to supply the United States with icebreakers, which Finland produces, and Washington needs to compete in the Arctic. He has proposed that Europe buy more American liquefied natural gas to even the trade balance with Washington. He has played up his time in South Carolina, meeting with Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican of that state, and having dinner with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a native of the state, and he has offered positive words publicly about Trump. Stubb understands that for his nation of 5.6 million people outnumbered by Russia by more than 25-1, foreign policy is not a game for a small country like Finland living next to a bigger place like Russia. Quite often it is about survival, he said. So for us, foreign policy is real, it is existential. Spain and Portugal. What we know about the power outage in Spain and Portugal. The New York Times. Ukraine. A Russian missile blew apart these Kyiv apartments and a decades-old community. The New York Times. Ukraine pinning war hopes on expanded drone program. The New York Times. 20A Rossep quick takes on headlines. The Guardian. April 30, 2025. Aston Martin imports from the United Kingdom may slow because of Trump tariffs in the United Kingdom. More girls are read to by parents than boys. The editor of Rossep believes that this may explain the academic merit gap between girls and boys in Germany. The center-left SPD party approves a coalition deal with the conservative CDU-CSU to form the next German government with Friedrich Merz of the CDU as its head. 20B headlines. The Guardian. April 30, 2025. Trump tariffs in United Kingdom. Aston Martin limits exports to U.S. because of Trump tariffs. Automotive industry. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Nissan warns of £4 billion loss as costs rise and Trump tariffs loom. Nissan. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump 100 days delusions of monarchy coupled with fundamental ineptitude. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump news at a glance. Trump attacks Democrats and communist judges at campaign-style rally. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump warns nothing will stop me at rally to celebrate 100 days in office. Donald Trump. The Guardian. United States and rule of law. Trump fires Doug Emhoff and others from U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council. Trump administration. The Guardian. Alabama runaway kangaroo on a loose named Sheila shuts down Alabama interstate. Alabama. The Guardian. United Kingdom and business and age. Still some fuel in the tank. The perks and perils of launching a business after 60. Work and careers. The Guardian. United Kingdom and more girls read to by parents than boys. Rossap view. This may explain the academic merit gap between girls and boys. From the headline, most parents do not enjoy reading to their children. Survey suggests books. The Guardian. Germany. Cocaine, corruption and bribes. The German port under siege by Europe's criminal drug gangs. Drugs trade. The Guardian. Germany. Europe. Live. Germany's SPD approves coalition deal with conservative CDU-CSU to form next government. South Africa. The white Afrikaners lining up to accept the Trump offer of asylum. South Africa. The Guardian. 21. A Rossap quick takes on headlines. The Guardian. April 30, 2025. Some argue misleadingly that renewables were responsible for the blackout in Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal lead the EU in renewables and were sourcing about 80% of their electricity from solar and wind. Renewable grids have low inertia, which when unmitigated can cause them to be less resilient to sudden shocks. How can these problems be mitigated? Battery storage and other technologies such as supercapacitors and flywheels can substitute for traditional forms of inertia by providing capacity in the event of a sudden change in frequency. In Germany, the left-wing TikTok queen and member of parliament, member of the Bundestag for the left-wing party Die Linke, pronounced Die Linke, Heidi Reichenach, refreshingly says it is in our German DNA to be anti-fascist. 21b headlines. The Guardian. April 29, 2025. Trump tariffs. Chaos is the Trump calling card, but reality is biting back. Lloyd Green. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Donald Trump to mark 100 days in office with Michigan rally. U.S. politics. Live. Trump tariffs. The uniting theme of the Trump presidency. Ineptitude. Robert Reich. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump 100 days delusions of monarchy coupled with fundamental ineptitude. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump 100 days from cornerstone of the West to unreliable ally. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. Trump 100 days. The Trump whirlwind start to his second presidency. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump tariffs. White House calls Amazon hostile for reportedly planning to list tariff costs. Amazon. The Guardian. Kennedy Jr. John Oliver on RFK Jr. A man who is clearly in way over his worm-riddled head. John Oliver. The Guardian. Musk. Elon. The Musk conflicts of interest should scare every American. Experts say Trump administration. The Guardian. Musk. Elon. The Musk Doge conflicts of interest worth $237 billion. Senate report says Elon Musk. The Guardian. Musk companies got billions from the government, now he's pulling up the ladder behind him. Christopher Marquis. The Guardian. Musk U.S. Senator introduces conflict of interest bill aimed at Elon Musk. U.S. politics. The Guardian. California. More than 50,000 Los Angeles County workers strike disrupting key services. Los Angeles. The Guardian. Florida. No safe seat. Could Democrats make Florida swing state again? Florida. The Guardian. Florida. Angry Florida voters hold empty chair town halls for absent Republicans. The Guardian. Washington State. Trump tariffs. Why is America sleeping as autocracy approaches? Governor Jay Inslee. The Guardian. Canada election 2025. Liv Carney clinches victory and says Trump is trying to break us as conservative leader. Poilievre set to lose seat. Canada election. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre loses seat he held since 2004. Canada. The Guardian. Canada. Carney gave a eulogy for Canada's old relationship with the U.S. Now he must redefine it. Canada. The Guardian. Canada. Carney's victory owes much to Trump and circumstance. Canada. The Guardian. Canada triumph for Carney. What happened in Canada's election And what will it mean? Canada. The Guardian. Canada Trump effect leaves Canada's Conservatives facing catastrophic loss. Canada. The Guardian. United Kingdom reacts to outage in Spain and Portugal. Cash emergency food and wind-up radios. How to survive a power outage. Emergency planning. The Guardian. Spain and Portugal shipwrecked in the 21st century. How people made it through Europe's worst blackout in living memory. Europe. The Guardian. Spain and Portugal. What caused the blackout in Spain and Portugal, and did renewable energy play a part? Renewable energy. The Guardian. Spain and Portugal. Questions begin as Spain and Portugal recover from largest power cut in recent European history. Europe. Live excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Spain pointed the finger at a breakup in its connection to France. Experts have said it could take days to identify the cause. Did renewable energy play a part? Spain and Portugal lead the EU in renewables and were sourcing about 80% of their electricity from solar and wind. When the blackout hit on Monday, some commentators speculated that the grid could have been overloaded by the amount of wind and sun available, as renewables are more intermittent than other forms of energy and sudden fluctuations in sunshine or wind can cause problems. However, this does not appear to be the case. Daniel Mura, senior European power analyst at S&P Global, said the nature and scale of the outage makes it unlikely that the volume of renewables was the cause, with the Spanish network more often than not subject to very high volumes of such production. The Spanish grid operator said on Tuesday that there had been two events akin to loss of power generation followed by a massive loss of renewable power which had destabilized the grid. They said it was very possible the first of these events was a sudden loss of solar power. Are renewables-based grids more fallible? Blackouts can happen regardless of what type of energy powers the grid. In 2003 there was a significant blackout in London when the grid was primarily powered by fossil fuels. It was caused by a failed transformer and an incorrectly installed protection relay. In 2003 a problem with a hydroelectric power line between Italy and Switzerland caused a major outage across the Italian peninsula for about 12 hours. The Spanish grid is undergoing upgrades as it is unable to carry the renewable energy required. Experts have said that the grid upgrades have not matched the pace of renewables being brought online. What about inertia? Gas and nuclear-powered electricity grids have high inertia, which is a term for the resistance of a grid to frequency changes. Renewable grids have low inertia, which when unmitigated can cause them to be less resilient to sudden shocks. How can these problems be mitigated? Battery storage and other technologies such as supercapacitors and flywheels can substitute for traditional forms of inertia by providing capacity in the event of a sudden change in frequency. These can provide breathing space for the operator in times of shock. So if large volumes of renewables are going to be loaded onto the grid, it needs to be properly designed and invested in. Grids need to be resilient against blackouts, but governments need to balance cost against risk, as disaster proofing the grid is expensive. Electrical grids are interconnected across countries to lower the costs and increase reliability, but this can mean a problem in one area can cause a domino effect across the entire zone. Germany. It is in our DNA to be anti-fascist. Germany's left-wing TikTok queen Heidi Reicheneck. Germany. The Guardian. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The latest tattoo on Heidi Reicheneck's lower right arm reads, "Angry woman, a present to myself," she says after the unexpected return to the German parliament of her party Die Linke, the left, in February's elections. Months before the vote, it had been widely predicted the far-left party successor to the East German Communists would be decimated, but the naysayers were proved wrong. Die Linke won nearly 9% of the vote, an increase of almost 4% on the previous election, giving them a healthy 64 seats in the new Bundestag. Much of the credit for their upswing has gone to Reicheneck, who in the run-up to the vote gave a fulminating speech in which she admonished the incoming Chancellor Friedrich Merz for having used the votes of the far-right Alternative for Deutschland to try to push through migration reform. Do not give up but fight back, resist fascism. We will all take to the streets, to the barricades. The 36-year-old urged fellow MPs and those watching at home. The speech, says Reicheneck, was spontaneous. I quickly scribbled some things down but then could not read my scrawl, but proved dynamite. Shared on social media almost 30 million times in just 5 days, it became the most widely watched speech in the history of the Bundestag and catapulted Reicheneck, who polls show is the favorite female politician in Germany, to a level of political stardom, particularly among young people, that just months previously the then beleaguered party could have only dreamed of. Ukraine, numerous signs of torture, a Ukrainian journalist's detention and death in Russian prison. Ukraine, The Guardian.
Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Hi, I am Leone. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's Corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your neighborhood epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times. One introduction. Rosette view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosette view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.